Josh, purchasing a condo, especially in the city of Boston, is a little bit different than purchasing a single family. Walk us through, what somebody should be thinking when entering that process.
Sure, and it definitely is a different process, or there's some different components that need to be addressed because it's a different product. One of the first things I always want to find out from a buyer is how many units are in the condominium association, because what you want to look for, if it's 2 or 3 units versus 100 units, actually both what you want to look for and likely the information you're going to find is going to be different. Smaller association, 2, 3, 4, 5 units. I'm going to encourage my buyer to try to contact at least one of the other unit owners. And the smaller the association, the more important that is. Because think about it, if you're buying into a 2-unit condominium association, you're really buying into a partnership with someone else.
Sure.
So you want to know who they are, what they want to do. Do they have plans to do certain things to the building, repave the driveway, paint the building, new roof, what have you? You're going to want to be involved in that conversation. As sort of a dovetailed component of that, most smaller associations, again, maybe 2 to 5 units, don't have much in the way of reserves, funds on hand to handle things, which is why that conversation is also important, because likely anything they want to do, you're going to have to pay for out of pocket right up front. The financials and whatnot are important on a large condominium association too, but if you're talking about an association that's 40, 50, 100 units, more likely than not, A, they're professionally managed, and then B, they'll have accounting reports, they'll have an organized budget, they'll have a profit and loss, an organized bank account and whatnot. So the information you're going to get, it might be larger numbers, but it's going to be a little easier to dissect because it's all going to be presented to you.
Sure. Now, that's not necessarily just going to automatically be presented to you. It's something that you or your agent should be asking the seller for.
Absolutely, absolutely. Once your offer is accepted, a lot of times buyers will make that a provision of the offer that they're going to want to review the condominium documents, budget, meeting minutes if there are any. If they keep track of the meetings, annual meetings, if they even have them. But it's definitely something you're going to want to try to get really as soon as you can once your offer is accepted. But that's a good point. Sometimes some listing agents will put them in the MLS listing sheet, so buyers agents will have access to them. But if not, and always good to ask, even if they are in MLS, hey, do we have everything? They might only have 1 set of meeting minutes. Maybe you want a couple of years worth of meeting minutes to track if there's any sort of, history of conversations going on. I think that's important as well.
And if you're borrowing money and obtaining a loan to purchase the property, you're almost going to be forced down that path because the bank's going to want to make sure that the project is warrantable as well. So they have the condo questionnaire, et cetera, that's required.
Yep, absolutely. And that's a good double up, because you're correct. The lender's going to want to make sure that the association is really viable, is how I like to think of it. One other real important thing, regardless of the size of the association, is you're going to want to get copies of the condominium documents and really zero in on their rules and regulations. What can you do? What's permitted? What's prohibited? Can you have pets? Can you lease the property? Is smoking prohibited? That's a big one now. And that'll kind of go through all those guidelines for you.
Have you ever seen that stuff happen where somebody buys a condo and there's no pets allowed and they have a dog spot that they've had for 10 years and can't get rid of?
Yeah, no, definitely, which is why it's really important, when you're working with your team, to have an attorney who's familiar with condominium associations, what to look for, where to look. We always make it a part of our practice to go over all these components with our buyers before they sign their contract, because I'd hate for you, right, to be my client, find out you have a 50-pound dog, they have a no pet provision, and you find out too late. That's a problem.
It sounds crazy, but that stuff happens all the time because people just think of it as, oh, that dog's part of my family. I would never think that he wouldn't be allowed into the property. It does happen.
It definitely happens. And sometimes it's people aren't thinking about it. Other times, a buyer may ask a listing agent about pets, what the policy is, and the listing agent, through no inadvertence of their own, just doesn't have the exact information that was in the condominium documents. So definitely something to ferret out early, because I don't think most people would want to get rid of a family member.
Nope, absolutely not. And you made a point about connecting with the attorney, making sure they're a real estate attorney. Kind of leads us into our next point of how do you make sure that you're working with the right attorney, because there are a lot of choices out there, and a lot of times people get caught up in a relationship. My cousin my friend's friend is an attorney, might not be a real estate attorney. That makes a huge difference.
No, I think it makes a big difference. I think it makes a big difference for the client, and I think it makes a big difference for the transaction as a whole. You know, our firm, all we do is transactional real estate. Everything from helping people buy their first home, refinance it, sell it, to 300-unit condominium developments with commercial space and, you know, sort of complex areas. I think it's very important to hire somebody or to work with an attorney who does transactional real estate. For instance, I don't know the first thing about estate planning or criminal law. If I tried to help a client with those, it would be a real disservice to them.
Sure.
The other thing that can happen in a transaction is if there's an attorney involved, let's say one is a real estate attorney and the other is not, the person who's not could really create a bottleneck. They don't know how to, you know, manage the transaction. They don't know their role really finely, and it can really create problems for everybody.
So for the buyer out there that's looking to jump into the market, number one, when do you engage with an attorney? And number two, are there a couple questions or a few questions that they can ask an attorney to make sure that it's the right fit for what they're trying to do?
Sure. I think, first of all, you know, it's important to find, as I said, somebody who does real estate, transactional real estate in particular. You know, real estate is local, so if they have a transactional real estate attorney in Hartford, Connecticut, but they're buying in Needham, Massachusetts, it doesn't fit.
Yeah.
So that's the first piece. And, you know, the most important thing, and we try to spend a lot of time with our clients in that, or future potential clients, I should say, I guess, in that initial phone call, trying to find out as much about the transaction and what they need to have happen in order for it to feel successful for them. And I think that's important. And from that, you know, defining what they're buying, what their scenario is, what their financing situation is, their timeline, things like if they have pets or maybe other sort of family needs that might need to be addressed in the transaction. The more we can find out about that, the better at the beginning. And I think the easiest way to do that is just a very open dialogue.
Engage at the beginning. Josh Ribner, Gilmartin Magence, they're in Newton and downtown Boston. Your whole team does a fantastic job. We've been doing business with you guys for a long time. Major player in the market. Josh, before we head out here, what are you seeing right now in the market as we're just midstream, middle of the winter right now? Yeah,
we're middle of the winter, but it you know, Eastern Massachusetts has that fabled spring market that's always sort of busy and boisterous, and we're coming into it. I would say over the last week to 10 days or so, activity has definitely picked up. We're seeing many more transactions coming in right now than maybe compared to 2 weeks ago. So it's heating up out there.
On the lending side, I'm seeing the same thing as well. I think a little Pats win, another Super Bowl kind of pushes everybody out. It's time to buy real estate now.
Everybody's optimistic.
Josh, thanks for stopping by.
Thank you.
If you want to connect with Josh Ribner and the team over at Gilmartin Magence, check out their website, gmlawllp.com. Share this post with your friends who might be purchasing or selling a property. And remember, there's more tips just like this right here on boston.com.